The first thing Jana Rowe heard was no alarm, no gunshot, and no order on the radio. It was a low sound, almost a whisper, a broken hum, as if the space tried to remember an old melody and failed. There, hanging from the hull of her scrapped ship, the Pilgrim, she understood that it was not an echo of metal. It was the song of a dying coral motor. The coral engines formed the Starlight Bridge, 12 giant nodes scattered throughout the galaxy, joined by rivers of gravity. Each node was living and a machine at the same time. He vibrated, breathed, and answered. Those who had heard of it, very few people, could feel when the tone changed. Jana had this ear since she was a child. For her, navigation was music. The route was rhythm. And on that sunless afternoon, the rhythm was off. Pilgrim, it keeps its orbit low. No heroism, Jana said over the communicator, her voice calm as always. 6 minutes before the tide was rough, replied Miko Dahl on the other side, inside the ship. Miko was thin, with attentive eyes and fingers that didn't stop. Hacker, runner, survivor. And I have crossed signals in the Dominion Channel. It stinks. Jana anchored the magnetic boot to a rib of the knot. The motor coral was a cathedral of metallic bones, covered in living plates that shone like scales in the sun. But there was no sun. Around it, a ring of debris rotated slowly. Load plates, broken hulls, and loose habitats. Vesper, the nearest harbor world, appeared in the distance, whitish, its orbital cables descending like webs. She leaned her palm against a crest of the choir. He felt the vibration on his skin, going up his arm. The tone wavered, beating out of rhythm like a tired heart. And within the floor, there was something even worse. Interference. As if another hand was trying to lead the music by force. Someone's fiddling with the metronome, he whispered. It's not natural instability. Can you tell? Miko. I can. It has a signature. 3 layers, 3 different hands. Silence on the radio for a second. Then Miko whistled softly. 3 factions sabotaging the same knot. Heliacal Concord, Cerulean Dominion, and Free Fleets. This is not war. It's suicide. Or someone wants to make it look like everyone is guilty, said Jana. The Pilgrim released a thin tube that slid into her hand. The jumping tuning fork was a light cylinder filled with resonators. When he vibrated, he translated the song of the bridge into navigable lines. Jana adjusted it, hit it twice with her finger and touched the choir. The sound responded with pain. And then, between the cracks, a clear pattern. A counterchant pushed the motor out of tune. Deliberate, precise, cruel. I took it, she said. It's the same pattern used in Karen's block. Domain subscription. Then why am I picking up acoustic encryption from Concordia here too? Miko countered. This looks like a setup. Jana didn't have time to answer. The pulse radar lit up like a fire. On the horizon, 3 frigates from the Cerulean domain came out from behind a bank of debris, bows angled, cool blue lights and magnetic guns opening. They would come straight to the knot. They would come to her. Hostile traffic, Miko said, already speeding up the Pilgrim. Give me 30 seconds to fish for you. I don't have 30. She unlocked her boot, pushed her body, floated in an elegant line over the living hoof, and plunged into the void. At the right point, he opened the micro candle of the EVA backpack. The controlled jet launched it in an arc into the ship's dorsal hatch. Behind, the motor coral groaned, changing half a tone. The rivers of gravity began to rise. Rough tide coming. Jana jumped into the Pilgrim, locked her helmet on the hook, fell on the seat, and plugged the tuning fork into the console. The cabin shook, as if an animal wanted to get out of it. Tie it to line 3, Miko shouted, and close the bottleneck now. Closed neck, tied in 15, 12, 9. The Dominion's frigates swept across the ring with curved shots, heavy bullets drawn by the gravity of the knot itself. A salute brushed the Pilgrim's tail and tore off paint, sensors, and pride. The alarms screamed and the dashboard flashed. Miko cursed at the open computer. They are not targeting us. They're aiming at the coral, Miko said, pressing keys like crazy. They will silence him with gunfire. Jana felt angry. Short, warm, useful. Not today. She played the tuning fork. The cylinder vibrated firmly, searching for a tone that still existed. He found a narrow strip, a tidal thread that ran along the far side of the knot, hidden from the firing lines. Jana poked the thrusters and thrust the Pilgrim into the weak fold of space. From the outside, it looked like the ship was sliding through an invisible film. Inside, the stomach wanted to give up. "Hold on," she said. The leading frigate set its sights. Their batteries opened in a perfect pattern. A wall of rust and fire came towards the Pilgrim. Jana turned the stick half a degree. The spacecraft passed through a centimeter gap between two payloads. The paint turned to dust again, but they stayed alive. "Line 2. Miko. 30 degrees to port." Jana had already turned. The tide rose for good. The entire knot began to pull the void, opening the river that connected Vesper to the anchor of Nerit. The singing became louder, and for a second, even with everything falling, Jana heard the original melody beneath the noise. She was beautiful. Sad, but beautiful. "Miko, record it. If I make a mistake, someone will have to hear it later. You won't make a mistake." The Pilgrim girl appeared on the other side of the knot, like a fish leaping across a ridge. The frigates lost sight for a few seconds. It was halftime. Jana didn't waste it. He pointed the spacecraft at Vesper's orbital cable and accelerated. Underneath, Vesper's anchor, a vertical city hanging from the cape, trembled with the tide. Platforms creaked, cranes buckled, and people screamed. The sirens sounded like dogs. 3 Dominion ships entered the river, Miko said in a lower voice. "They will use the tide to go down shooting. Heroes." "Heroes don't shoot hanging people," Jana growled. "Take the short line from Dock 6. We will pull civilians." "Our Dock 6 is," Miko checked the screen, "crowded, afraid, and without faith. Then we become faith." She turned on the external speakers, tuned the tuning fork, and let the right chant leak through the city's structure. Between the crackles of metal, the melody took a step. The choral motors responded a little, just a little, but it was enough. The tidal river gained another curve, a secondary path, and an improvised ramp that took the barges of the Ankara to a protected pocket. Miko opened the hallway with fake codes. The doors obeyed. "Civilians coming in," he said. Now there was haste and hope mixed. The Dominion's guns breathed fire again. A heavy bullet struck the side of the anchor. Plates flew. People fell. Jana bit her lip until it bled. There was no way to stop everything, but it could be delayed. "I'm going to sing out of time," he said, and pulled the tuning fork 2 steps higher. "Jana, this is going to stress the knot." "Just for a minute." She modulated the tone and created a ripple in the tide. The frigates, confident in the symmetry of the current, missed the turn. One of them hit its hull on a rib of the river and lost propulsion. Another started to rotate. The third kept its course but arrived too slowly. During this time, 30 barges crossed the improvised ramp and disappeared behind the pocket. 30 salvos, Miko whispered, as if praying. 30 families. The Pilgrim's alarms rose in tone. Motor Coral did not like the abuse. The chant became rough, almost screaming. Jana loosened her tuning fork, brought the rhythm back, and stroked the lever as if apologizing. "Bear with me. Only today." Out of nowhere, another voice entered the radio. Clear, firm, cold. Commodore Valik Tern of the Domain. "Anonymous pilot, you are interfering with state property. Deactivate your instrument and surrender the aircraft. This knot will be disciplined." Jana breathed and wiped sweat from her eyebrow with the back of her hand. He aimed the Pilgrim away from the city, drawing the fire to himself. "Commodore, the bridge is not yours, not even mine. She sings for those who listen, and I teach you to sing," he replied dryly, "with metronome and fear. Fear doesn't hold back the tide." She closed the channel. The tone of the motor choral stabilized for a moment, as if in agreement. Miko laughed nervously. "One day you'll still kill me with these sentences." "Not today," she said. "Today the tide is on our side." On the horizon, small dots lit up like fireflies. Corsairs from the free fleets appeared, coming by another current. Cipher signals flashed, all in the same pattern. Arbis, the mechanic monk of the Order of Echo, sent a single sentence. The choir remembers. Come to the countryside. Jana looked at the huge motor coral beneath her feet, at the city that was still shaking, and at the frigates that were reorganizing. The broken singing continued, but now there was a second voice. Answer. Miko, prepare for insertion through the hull, he said. Let's get on the bridge. Now? Now. Before they silenced the song for good. The pilgrim turned her nose to the mouth of the living structure. The river of gravity opened like a curtain, and when they crossed the line, Jana felt her heart follow the beat. The broken corner still hurt, but for the first time, she heard space to arrange the melody. And he knew what that meant. War, yes, but I also walk. And perhaps salvation. Entering the bridge was like crossing the mouth of a giant animal. The pilgrim crossed the curtain of gravity, and everything became denser and slower, as if time stretched. The interior of the motor coral looked like an endless cavern of organic columns and braided metal, ribs glowing in shades of amber and green. Sound was everywhere. It didn't come from boxes. It didn't come from engines. It was pure vibration, a low chorus that trembled in the chest and hoof. Jana felt the melody beat in her bones, recognized his presence, measured her pulse, and returned a soft touch to the tuning fork. I am here. I will not hurt you. I just need him to survive. The echo replied with a short note. Seal stabilized, Miko said, eyes running for charts. Internal tide rising. We have a 6-minute window before a reversal. Then let's run in 6, Jana replied. Arby said, come to the interior. Where? The viewfinder showed an old ping, a dim headlight set back decades, hidden in the fold of a column. The Order of the Echo always left breadcrumbs for those who dared to listen. Marked route. But we have company, Miko pointed out. Small Dominion drones glided across the living ceiling, cool blue lights swimming through the air like fish. Cedars. They threw capsules that stuck to the choir and released pulsations out of tune. The chant scratched Jana's throat. I'm going to shut those cans, she said. The pilgrim sank under an arch of ribs. Jana tilted the ship into a narrow corridor and accelerated. 2 drones realized it too late. The pilgrim's wing tore one of them off the wall. Miko spun a ventral turret and toasted the second with a short wrist. The smell of ozone filled the cabin. 3 more ahead, Miko. And a suppression capsule stuck in the C-12 joint. If that drum goes off, the tide turns against us. I can take off, Jana said, biting her lip. But I'll have to get out on the cable. Is EVA in here? Miko vibrated her foot on the floor. Jana, the bridge is alive. If she sneezes, you turn to dust. That's why I'm going to excuse myself. She brought the pilgrim girl to the shoulder of the column and opened the service floodgate. The air inside smelled of salt and wet iron. Jana grabbed the cable, adjusted the magnetic boot, and left. Temple silence. The columns vibrated under the skin. Each step on the living wall returned a low murmur, like the purr of a whale. The domain's capsule looked like a gray wart, pulsing wrong and painting the coral with cool spots. Jana leaned her palm against her spine, next to the tumor. He struck the tuning fork twice, very lightly, and whispered, Excuse me, I'll take this off. The vibration responded in a soft glide. Ponte gave up a little. Jana plunged a thermal scalpel under the edge of the capsule, and at the same time, Miko fired an adhesive microload that locked the drum. 2 movements, 1 breath. Click. The wart has loosened. Jana pulled with the weight of her body, almost slipped, cursed softly, and threw the capsule into the disposal duct. The tone went up half a step. The relief was physical. 1 less, she said, snagging the hook again. 2 sours coming back. Miko, tense. And, assigning the domain in the main hallway. A light frigate is sticking its nose in here. They are sick and hurried, Jana replied. She flew back to the floodgate, got in, and locked her helmet. The pilgrim was already spinning on the axis when the first drone appeared on the display. Miko let out a burst, and Jana completed it with a wing cut that crushed the second against a rib. Sparks rolled down the ceiling. Arbus's beacon shone brighter, and suddenly he spoke into the canal, a low, clear voice. "Listen before you shoot. The Dominion has brought a frigate into the bridge. They want to plant a synthetic coral in the tidal metronome. If they can, Ponte will only accept commands from them." The chant becomes order. The river becomes a military street. "Coordinate our arrival," Jana asked. "I need a clean path." "There is no such thing as a clean path," Arbus replied, almost smiling. "But there are right paths. Turn left when your ears scream, 'No,' and when everything becomes too bright, darken it." "Monk's cryptogram," Miko sighed. Jana kicked the pilgrim into a diagonal tube. The Dominion frigate entered the main corridor, knocking down coral slabs with its bow and scattering cedars like poisonous seeds. The song trembled with pain. Jana felt her stomach rise. Ponte could handle it, but not for long. She accelerated until the hull vibrated. "It's going to break," Miko warned. "We can't go wrong," Jana said, and turned left into a tunnel that seemed dead. Everything about her screamed no. The tunnel was too narrow, dark and damp, but the tone inside was pure, hidden from suppression. The pilgrim shaved ribs and came out on the other side on a natural balcony that overlooked the metronome, a translucent dome beating like a heart. Beneath it, Dominion technicians, trapped in exoskeletons, set up a bluish lattice, the synthetic coral. "Ali, Miko, that enslaves the song. If I shoot here, I'll pierce my heart together." "So how?" We changed the music. She fixed the tuning fork to the console and began to modulate the bass tone. It wasn't brute force, it was tough, small adjustments, micro-hundredths. A note above, half below, comes back, safe. Miko stopped talking. On the display, the dome vibrated. The pulse slowed down, and then accelerated like running. The synthetic coral tried to keep up, but it was calibrated to a fixed standard. A weld snapped, a rod gave way, another one cracked. "They noticed," Miko said. "Snipers at 2 degrees, aim at us." "Get dark," Jana said, remembering the advice. He cut lights, knocked down signatures, and let the pilgrim die in the air. The first salvos passed, blind. In the dark, she spun the ship, using only the reading from the corner. No radar, no visuals, just the music. He gave a dry touch to the tuning fork. The heart responded. Jana saw the whole map in her head. Ditches, folds, and vortexes. He opened his eyes and went. The pilgrim mother dived under the dome into a narrow street where the field was smooth. Miko released 2 magneto microcharges, not to explode, but to unbalance the false coral. The loads sucked energy at the perfect timing that Jana marked on the tuning fork. The Dominion's metronome lost its footing. He fell like a dancer stumbling over his own movement. The bars hitting the floor made a hollow and beautiful sound. The dome pulsed freely. "Arbus, the tide is with you," Jana said. "Close the gates." "Closing," the monk replied. "But the price comes with it." The columns in the main corridor contracted. The gravity field has changed phase. The frigate of the Dominion, which was advancing with arrogance, felt the floor turn uphill. His nose sank, the hull scraped, and shields squeaked. Without an angle and without music, it became a stone in a stream. It hit the bow, it spun, and it collided with the seeds themselves. The chant screamed. Then he calmed down. "They don't stop," Miko warned, reading new pings. "Sowers is still alive. Snipers looking for Echo. And we have... Jana, look at this." In the corner of the display, Commodore Valak Turn's cold signature shone in severe blue. He had brought a smaller, fast command boat with antennae as thin as blades. And it came straight to the metronome. "He wants the baton," Jana said, "and I'm not going to give it." Valak opened the channel, his voice too calm for that hell. "Pilot, you have just interfered in the state's strategic resource. Withdraw. I guarantee mercy." "Ponte doesn't know your word," Jana replied. "And my mercy is dearer." "I don't buy it," Valak said. "I confiscate." His boat fired a glued beam of suppression, thin as a needle, straight into the Pilgrim's tuning fork. The console squeaked, smoked, and died. The singing disappeared. The world has gone silent. Jana went blind. The stomach jumped. His hands froze on the stick. Without the music, the bridge was a dark labyrinth. "Jana?" Miko called low. "Jana?" She closed her eyes and searched for the sound that was left. There was no tuning fork. There was no panel. There was the body, your heart, the memory of the notes, the rhythm of the tide engraved in the bones of so much navigation. He breathed in the time of Ponte, 4 long halves, 2 short halves, pause. There, a shade of vibration touched his skin, an almost sound. "Enough. I have you," she whispered. "I still have you." The Pilgrim spun in the void, by touch, like a dancer who resembles the floor with her eyes closed. Valik's boat went close, missed by centimeters, and came back at the same instant. He was good. "Arbis, I need a sign from the temple," Jana said. "Anything that will give me back a pulse." "I give you the largest bell," the monk replied, and the whole bridge struck a deep, deep note that pierced hoof, lung, and fear. The sound returned the map to Jana's head. It tore through a bend, jumped a vortex, slipped down a ramp under the metronome, and emerged behind the Commodore's boat. Miko already had 2 charges prepared, not to explode again, to silence his antenna. "Now," Jana said. The charges stuck to the blades and drained the suppression. The boat lost its goad. Valik did not curse. He didn't ask for permission, and he didn't ask for forgiveness. He just stepped back 2 degrees to redo the calculation. That said more about danger than 1,000 threats. "The tide will turn," Miko shouted. 30 seconds. "Everyone out," Jana ordered over the open channel. "Order of the Echo, free fleets and civilians in hiding. Take the ramps I opened. The bridge will move." She pulled the Pilgrim woman to the balcony of the dome. The heart beneath his shell beat twice as hard. The river of gravity changed sides, as if space breathed and changed its lungs. Drones, loose capsules, and the imprisoned frigate itself turned into leaves. They were taken away, crushed in an impossible curve. Valik's boat held on. Of course he did. He had claws. "He finished," Abi said, his voice weary. "For today." Jana looked at the cracks in the dome and at the cold marks the showers left on the coral. It was not victory. It was a breather. "It didn't end," she said. "He comes back with an entire fleet, and with a better artificial coral. We need the right counter-chant, Arbis." "The counter-chant is not written," the monk replied. "He learns from people, with many voices, with cities that sing together." Jana nodded, even though he couldn't see. He turned the tuning fork back on. He smoked, wounded, but alive. Like her. Like Ponte. "So we rehearse," he said. "And if they try to tune the galaxy with a metronome in fear, we'll go out of tune until it becomes music again." Miko laughed breathlessly. That was beautiful. "It was a threat," she corrected dryly. "Let's get those folks off the hook before the domain comes back with teeth." The Pilgrim sped down the corridor alive, following the note that the bell had left in the air. Behind them, Valik's boat lit up in silence. And, in the middle of the song, Jana heard what she feared and desired most. We were not alone. Ponte remembered. And he had chosen to sing back. The Pilgrim came out of the interior of the bridge, as if returning to the surface, panting. Vespa trembled at the anchor. The ring of debris seemed tighter, as if fear had shrunk the sky. On radar, signs appeared and disappeared. Civilian barges, corsairs of the free fleets, and patrols of the Dominion sniffing like sharks. "Invitation coming," Miko Dahl said, filtering cryptos. "Grey dawn. Short port, light cargo, sharp tongue. Captain Raoul." Jana smiled from the side. Half poet, half problem. Accepts. The Aurora slid behind scrap metal, hull patched, plasma sails retracted, names erased under the paint. Raoul's hoarse voice crackled on the radio. "Pilgrim, what music you plucked from that throat. Come into my embrace before the domain discovers hearts." "Hug accepted," Jana replied. "Just tell me the batteries are hot." Hot. Warm metaphors. "Docks. The air of the Aurora smelled of oil, recycled salt, and stolen spices. People in colorful rags, constellation tattoos, and tools on their waists crossed the deck with light urgency. Between coils and crates, an old man in a gray tunic was waiting, hands on his sleeves. Arbis, monk of the Order of Echo. "You listened," he said, without preamble. "And Ponte heard you." "You're sick," Jana replied, "and someone forces a tone that is not hers." Arbis nodded, young eyes on an old face. "The corner of the bridge is choral, not sheet music. What the Dominion wants is a tidal metronome." Miko peeked at the side viewfinder. "Patrols at 2,000 meters sweeping in a fan." Ral clapped his hands. "Safety first." Low lights, high tea, and someone ties deck 4 before the monk levitates. Short smiles. Arbis held out a narrow case to Jana. "Corner keys," he said. "Acoustic encoders. We opened short ports within the tidal rivers. Small coves where civilians breathe as the war goes on." Jana weighed the case. Slight, but it vibrated in the bone of the ear. "Price?" "Voices," Arbis replied. "Each door calls for a chorus." Ral scratched a crude holographic map. Vesper, the anchorman, 2 smaller knots, and a scar running across the sector. "Archipelago line," he said. "Short tides that the Dominion avoids on a whim. We opened 3 ports. The 3rd falls within the range of Commodore Valak. Small statistic, but live. Small statistics take work." Jana opened the case. Cylinders with old membranes and symbols. "The 1st port, north of the anchor," Miko pointed out. "Curve with gravity. Mud. If we sing it right, it becomes a lake." "We will sing, Arbis, and we will teach others." The radio lit up cold. Valak turn. "Ship Grey Dawn, cease the interference and surrender heretical crew members of the Order of Echo. This is a religious and military crime." Ral bowed to the speaker. "Perfect, Commodore." There was a lack of poetry. "Censorship authorized, Valak." Silence of the sector starting. The lights flickered, frequencies dropped. The electricity seemed to shrink. The domain's favorite weapon, a carpet that no one screams about. "It's going to cut our voices," Miko muttered. No voice, no singing, no corner, no port. Arbis turned to Jana, firm, "You and me. Whoever has breath, lends it." Jana pinned the corner keys to the Aurora's grids. Crew members formed a semicircle, hands on shoulders. Ral drank tea and cleared his throat. "Valak silences the radio. It doesn't shut people up. See." A shy C broke into nervous laughter. Jana put her hand on the handrail and felt the hull vibrate in the catechism of the bridge. He blew the tuning fork. A low note ran through the ship. "Oh. Now, together." It didn't come out pretty. He came out alive. Crooked, big, timid voices, adding to the tone. The keys vibrated, cleaning without taming. The ground returned sound to the bones. Valak's silence faltered. In Vesper, on the balconies, mothers hugged children and sang without knowing why. "I harbor one opening," Miko said, her hand shaking. The tide rippled. A cove formed. Barges slid in, anchored, and breathed. On the other side, corsairs repeated the maneuver. The silence has receded a hand. "Porto Dois, Arbis." Counterchant in triplets, 3 shorts, pause, 2 longs. Leather hammer. "I hold base." Jana blew short beats. Miko synchronized membranes. Ral set a time by tapping the glass. People laughed and cried while singing. The tide obeyed. The 2nd port opened up next to Doka Fria, where the orbital cable hooked the ring. Patrols arrived late. Curved shots died as they touched the tide lake. Bullets in the water. "3rd," Miko whispered, "is in Valak's sights. If we open it, it bites. We sing with one hand and show teeth with the other." Ral sharpened his batteries. "It's not force," Arbis corrected. "It's choice. We need him to choose the wrong math." Jana closed her eyes. He remembered the largest bell inside the bridge. The Dominion marked 123 over the sea. She responded with syncopation, 232, creating a tide step. He opened the third port half out of step, where no one would open. Valik bit it. His boat moved forward to crush the cove and locked into the edge vortex, skidding. It was enough for the boats to pass. "Port 3 open," Miko laughed like someone breathing after drowning. 20 boats in." The lights burst white. Valik saturated everything. Total silence. Singing is dead. The deck was blinded. Arbis did not hesitate. Jana blew the tuning fork without sound. 2 sailors kicked their boots. A woman set the pace on her leg. Children in Vesper responded late. Vocalizing nothing, they sang everything. The hull vibrated. The third port remained stubborn. On the edge, Miko gasped. "If we close now, we save those who entered." Jana saw more boats around the bend. Babies, old men, big eyes. "Hold another 10 seconds. They were the 10 longest. Shots swept away. Aurora groaned. An antenna took off. Sparks rained in. The tide bit the hull. At the 10th, the last civilian entered. The cove closed like a fish's mouth. Silence. Then, breaths. Raal leaned his forehead against the railing and laughed. Miko collapsed. Arby sat with the dignity of someone who learned to fall. "How many?" "Jana. 37 boats, in the 3 ports," Miko said, her voice cracking. "Thousands." The radio crackled. Valik, calm again. "Beautiful. You sing, I learn. See you in the anchor siege." The map drew his route straight and cruel to the hanging city. Jana closed the case of the singing keys. "So we teach Vesper to sing before he arrives, and we prepare a counter-chant that breaks metronome teeth." Arby smiled, tired. "First lesson? No one sings alone." Ponte returned a short note. "Promise, Bet." And the war has tuned its next beat. Vesper's anchor was a city hanging from a thick orbital cable like a cathedral. Platforms, hanging gardens, workshops, schools, and temples, all stacked in slowly rotating rings, balancing the weight of the world. On that pale morning, the sky was the color of worn metal, and the smell of fear ran through the corridors like a draft. "Valik comes by 3 vectors," Miko Dahl said, projecting the map onto the deck of the Grey Dawn. "A wedge through the shadow of the Cape, a fan of fighters through the western ring, and a light destroyer underneath, targeting the civilian docks." Jana Rowe adjusted the tuning fork strap on her chest. Around it, corsairs of the Free Fleets attached reinforcements to the hull. Civilians carried water tanks, and monks of the Order of the Echo set small resonators on support columns. The monk, Arbis, walked, touching the metal with 2 fingertips, listening. Always listening. "We need 3 things," Jana said directly. "Rhythm to open evacuation routes, shadow to hide the weak, and tooth to bite when the Dominion touches." Raal, the captain, smiled hard. "Rhythm, shadow, and tooth. Give a hymn." Alarms swept across the decks. Blue dots of the dominance crossed the threshold of the sector. The air became heavy, as before the rain. "The music begins, Jana." The monks turned on the resonators. Low notes ran down the cable, descending to the platforms like orderly steps. Children pointed, smiled, and forgot for a moment. Jana blew the tuning fork, marking 323 time. The bridge responded with a ripple in the local tidal river, creating an invisible corridor that tangentiated the docks. Miko opened the civilian channel. "Embark in groups. Follow the sound. Don't run. Breathe in the beat. Whoever knows how to sing, sing." The first wedge of fighters whizzed over the western ring, streaking the air with hot trails. Scrap turrets spewed light. 2 Dominion aircraft crashed silently, spinning like broken toys. The rest scattered and came back, trained, fast, and merciless. "Shadow vector on the main cable." "Miko, they want to crush the sustain core. If the cable shakes, people fall." "Arbis?" "Jana." The monk leaned his forehead against the beam. "There is a phase slit in segment 12B. If we hold it there, the cable sings in counterphase and absorbs the blow." "Resonators for 12B! Now!" Jana screamed. "Raal, cover me in the high hallway!" Corsairs ran like ants with destiny. The Aurora opened short and stubborn fire. An enemy salvo hit a scaffold, dust, light, and screams. Jana bit her lip, blew the tuning fork 2 steps higher, and clamped the bar on 12B. The handle moaned, then turned. The wedge struck, and the blow disappeared into the body of the structure like a blow to thick leather. Held, Arby's murmured, almost a prayer. Evacuation? Jana. 30% on the boats, Miko replied. But the destroyer underneath is targeting Lodox. If it drills, the tide pulls everything into the void. Jana turned to Ral. Lend me a toy. Ral pointed to an old-school magnetic tug, all patch and heart. Pull everything that resists iron. He'll respect the tide, Jana said, climbing into the cabin. Miko, with me. Arby's, hold the cable compass. If I fail, sing for me. The bull jumped off the dock with a real roar, and another invented by the crew for good luck. Jana threw the tug over the side, slipping through shadows of the cable until she saw the destroyer. Smooth hull, sharp bow, scalpel-cold antennae. Miko, the bull wasn't made for that. Me neither. And look how I dance. Jana countered, and smiled, with only one corner of her mouth. She blew the tuning fork in a nervous 414. The tide made a short ridge in front of the destroyer. Its bow rose half a degree, enough to miss the dock. Miko threw out the magnetic claws. 2 grabbed steel, and the third hit a shield and ricocheted. 2 points! Miko! Wow. Not yet. Sing first. Jana modulated the note, making the crest turn into a step. The destroyer tried to compensate and exposed the belly. She pulled the bull with everything, grappas creaking, engines bellowing. The tug groaned like an old ox, but the destroyer turned half a hand, enough for the low docks to see sky. Ral, dice smoke on the flank. Jana. Aurora projected clouds of EM noise. Dominion fighters lost vectors for an instant. A truckload of people was saved. At the top, the wedge of the cable's shadow regrouped. 3 fighter jets dived into swan formation, targeting the platform of the schools. Jana felt her chest cold. Arby's was already racing. He placed a portable resonator on the railing, struck the phalanxes twice, and sang a long note. The sound descended through the metal and rose into the air like an invisible wall. The aircraft hit the sound wall and lost lift. 2 fell into the sea of gravity, and 1 limped away. Safe children, Miko said, and his voice trembled with anger and relief. Valik changed the game, Ral warned. Blue light, local silence in the central square. He will cut the chorus where we are strongest. Then we take the square to him, Jana replied. She accelerated the bull, dragging the destroyer as if pulling a stubborn anchor. The enemy hull scraped a pylon, sparks as long as rain. Jana blew a dry 2-2-1. The tide dampened under the destroyer's belly. The bull pulled, the animal sank, and stopped. Not dead, but imprisoned, like a stone in a stream. Low docks liberated. Miko. Half the boats are on the way. Explosions shook the western ring. Valik, the patient, brought suppression battering rams. Projectiles that do not explode. They fall silent. Where they knocked, the corner keys died for minutes. The edges of the map have been muted. Jana. Arby's. I know. She let go of the bull's grasps, left the destroyer stuck on the step, and flew back into the heart of the city. On the way, he saw the battering rams falling, black, beautiful in a cruel way. They played the platform, and the sound disappeared. With him, courage. Don't shoot them, Jana shouted into the canal. They eat energy. Surround and sing on the sides. Miko opened 2 corner keys under the columns and blew, out of tune and perfect. Neighbors understood and clapped in a bad way. Monks responded with a staff over the top. The silence that Valik imposed from the center was eaten by the edges. The sound came back through paths that were not in the manual. Evacuation at 80%, Miko. But the eastern ring is on fire. The eastern ring really burned. Real flame, hot metal. A workshop's fuel container had exploded. People ran wrong. Water is not enough, Ral said. Pressure dropped. Jana landed the bull on the edge of the ring, jumped with a mask and fiber coat, and ran with 2 more. He opened a tidal hydrant, a valve that pulls gravitational current to move liquids, and attached a hose. He blew the tuning fork in a short pulse, and the internal river pushed water upwards in white jets. The fire receded. A mother lifted her son in her arms as a medal. Jana pretended she didn't see it. There was more to erase. 92%, Miko. Last boat leaving. Valak. Valak hovered in a sleek command boat, antenna blades like knife wings. He watched. He did not come for the final shock. I wanted to measure. You improvise well, he said. Today you saved Vespa. Tomorrow I'll turn off the engine. Without a bridge, there is no tide. Without tide, there is no corner. Without singing, there is no you. Jana stared at the boat's white hull, the enemy's calm. Tomorrow the city will sing louder, she replied. And you will find that silence is something you deserve. Valak didn't laugh. See you soon, Ro. His boat picked up the blades and disappeared through the shadow of the cable, escorted. Remaining fighters pulled back. The air seemed to grow, as if after a storm. On the deck of the Aurora, people hugged people, crying, laughing, sitting down. Arby's leaned against the beam and closed his eyes. Rahl drank tea, trembled his hand and drank more. Final count, Miko said, her voice dry from crying and holding. 95% evacuated or protected. Losses? I won't say it now. Jana nodded. The tuning fork weighed more on the chest. She looked at the city hanging, singed and stubborn. The corporal sang low, bruised, but alive. Today we hold it. Tomorrow he'll try to turn off the engine. She looked at Arby's. The counter song, we need to start now. Arby's opened his eyes, exhausted and sullen. The counter chant is no trick. It is an agreement. City, bridge, fleet, people and machines. If they agree, he can't put a metronome. Nor with all the silences in the world. Rahl raised his glass. Then we toast to a choir that bites. Miko smiled crookedly. And the finely tuned stubbornness. Jana blew a short note on the tuning fork. Small, but firm. Ponte responded with another, a little clearer. And the anchor, tired, returned the third. 3 notes. Rhythm, shadow, and tooth. The right song for a city that has decided to stand. As night fell over Vesper, a night of rationed lamps and covered windows, the pilgrim turned her nose back to the heart of the coral engine. There was no victory to celebrate. There was a break, and intervals are used to change the score. Insertion through the living hoof, Miko Dahl confirmed, running his fingers over the controls as if petting a nervous animal. Only sound. Jana Rowe pinned the tuning fork to her chest. The warm metal vibrated against her skin, a pulse that was not hers, and was too. Let's plant the corner keys in the beat of the bridge. If Valak tries to silence us, the choir responds to us from within. What if the choir decides it prefers Valak? Miko ventured. Then let him tell me to my face, Jana countered dryly. I know how to listen. The curtain of gravity opened in a liquid penumbra. The interior of the motor coral was cathedral-like and lung-like. Living columns, metal ribs, and field pockets that resembled membranes. The song came from all sides, diffuse, grave, and perfumed with salt and ozone. Jana touched the tuning fork, scoring 332. Ponte responded with a shiver, as if recognizing footsteps in the dark. First beat at 180 meters, Miko pointed out. The systole of the tide. You plant there, and there. Jana maneuvered the pilgrim between ribs without touching. When I touched the lever, it was almost with respect. A speed bump of gravity rose slowly. She waited. Another came down. She entered. The ship slipped down a corridor that seemed to narrow just right for its hull. Remarkably, as if the bridge gave way. I swear she likes you, Miko muttered. Don't say that out loud, Jana replied, half laughing. It's going to be jealous. The first beat was a niche at the meeting of 3 columns. The vibration there tickled the sternum. Jana anchored the pilgrim with soft claws, opened the hatch, and stepped out with the corner keys case attached to her belt. The living ground beneath his boots returned each step with a sigh. She chose the least taut membrane, glued the first resonator, and blew a short note. The key lit up amber. "I can hear it," the light read. "1," she said. "Second?" "On the left, Miko." "But, wait." The sound of thin propellers licked the hallway. Dominion's incisive drones, small, black, triangular profiled, emerged from the shadows, jamming blades spinning at high speed, sours of mismatch. Each one carried a suppression capsule calibrated for that frequency. "How many?" "Jana, 5. No, 7. Coming in 2 waves." "No shooting," Jana decided. "No wounding inside the choir. Let's dance." She jumped back to the Pilgrim. Miko set up lamb mode. Minimal thrusters, minimal signature, only gravity. Jana scored 212 on the tuning fork, a lame step, and entered a side phase slit. Drones designed to follow optimal paths have lost pace. 2 passed straight by, lightly hitting the membrane. The coral swallowed the impacts with a shiver. 3 tried to curve and entered the same crevice late. The Pilgrim mother had already left. The last 2 were orphaned from the formation and hesitated. A machine error. Miko threw acoustic baits that exploded in silence, a temporary hole in the frequency, and pulled the triangles away. "Beautiful," he smiled, sweaty. "Next, open beat." The second point vibrated deeper, an organ catchphrase. Jana planted the key, blew, and saw the light rise from amber to red. "I'm with you," he winked. She breathed a little better. "The third is in the auxiliary metronome," Miko warned. "And we have a big company." A spear-shaped insertion device from the Dominion had been sawing gravity to clear the way. Up front, blue seeds, nucleated capsules that, when stuck, taught the coral a persistent lie. Behind, a thin boat with blade antennas, Valak turned in person, with his usual calm. "He's come to finish class," Jana said coldly. "Let's go first." The route has narrowed. The song changed color, a saturated note, almost pain. The Pilgrim wavered. Miko locked what there was to stop. "Jana, this corridor is one way. If we cross with the spear, we become a scratch on the wall." So we didn't cross. We went over. She played the tuning fork with her knuckle, 3-2-1, a cadence that invites the field to open and close like a diaphragm. The living wall swelled a hand. The Pilgrim climbed up that hand and slid down the high throat of the corridor, while the spear whizzed underneath, without seeing them. The hoof vibrated so close that the stomach wanted to let go. Jana smiled humorlessly. "I'm sorry, my friend," I said to Ponte. "I promise I'll wash my feet." In the niche of the auxiliary metronome, a translucent dome pulsated, scars still fresh from the last battle. Domain technicians were already there, thin in exoskeletons, gluing phase shims to stop the crash. Triangular drones patrolled the perimeter. The spear was coming close behind. "No shots," Miko repeated, as a reminder and prayer. "No shots," Jana echoed, and opened the case. 3 keys, 3 positions: systole, diastole, and bundle node. She glued the first one to the base, blew 1, glued the second to the top, blew 2, and held the last one over the central beam, waiting for the right pulse. It was ballroom dancing with a living heart. If he missed, he would stop Vespa's entire tide. The spear entered the hall. Drones turned their backs, antennas aligned. Valak opened the channel, a voice that neither rose nor fell. "Class is over, Ro," I say. Ponte obeys. "Drop the toy." "The bridge is not a classroom," Jana replied, without looking. "And today the choir chooses the conducting." She waited for the micro-interval, the silence between beats, and blew the third note, short, crooked, and tight. The 3 keys responded in unison. The auxiliary metronome went into choral mode. Instead of being fixed, it began to follow the closest voices, those anchored in the Vesper tide, on the boats, on the balconies, and in the corridors. A beautiful noise ran through the choir. The phase chokes of the Dominion vibrated, lost step, and cracked. The spear corrected to crush, late. "Miko, the punctuated black woman," said Jana. He blew the membrane with his dry lip. Ta, ta, ta. The beast took a step and trapped the spear in a compass vortex. Not strong, just stubborn. Enough to delay. Valak did not curse. He touched a thin beam on the belly of the auxiliary metronome, hunting for the frequency that would kill the novelty. Jana saw the jet. He saw the future, and he chose. Bigger bell. Now. Deep inside, the bridge responded to the temple's name. An immense note hit, low and round, pushing air, metal, and fear. Valak's beam distorted. The boat's antenna groaned. The drones lost their blades, and the technicians grabbed pillars to keep from falling. The pilgrim trembled like a leaf and stayed. The auxiliary metronome synchronized with the bell and learned the chorus's way. Full planting, Miko said, panting and laughing at the same time. Jana. We tied our hearts to the neighborhood. To the whole neighborhood. Arbis entered the canal. His voice moved. And the neighborhood to the world. And the world to the bridge. The spear gave up retreating. Instead, he armed the blue seeds and threw them into a fan. Each capsule would stick wherever it touched and try to teach silence for weeks. Jana bit her lip. I said no shots, right? I said, Miko confirmed. Then, sing around. They opened the keys on the stalk. The hall was filled with counter songs, voices from the deck, from the balcony, from the corridor, and from people who did not know each other. The blue seeds stuck and failed. There was no continuous silence to chew. The sound came through many paths. Valak took the boat out of the line, calculating again. His voice on the radio didn't bring anger. It brought certainty. You are setting up a contracanto. I break. It takes time, but I break it. Bring good tools, Jana replied. Ours are many hands. She collected the keys from the case. The planted ones remained. They were from the bridge now. Returned to the pilgrim mother and pulled the ship out of the hall at the same pace she had entered. On the way out, he touched the tuning fork lightly on the live railing. Thank you. The spine shook, returning a warm note. Outside, the space slept poorly. Vesper was still smoking, but the chorus was already spreading to neighborhoods that had never spoken to each other. Children marked time with pots, monks tuned handrails, and corsairs sang out of tune on purpose just to test the smile of the metal. Tomorrow he'll try to turn off the engine, Jana, Miko reminded herself. Then tomorrow we'll sing over it, she said, and if the engine stops, the city doesn't. She turned the pilgrim mother into the pale light of the planet and for a second allowed herself to get tired. The tuning fork weighed less. Next move? Miko. The counter song, Jana replied. Time to teach Vesper to conduct, and to make Ponte choose out loud. The next morning dawned with the sound of pots. Not sirens, not gunshots. Pots. Vesper woke up to metal banging on metal, children laughing, old men marking time on the railing, and the workshops tuning saws as if they were flutes. The choir spread out through alleys and walkways, climbed the orbital cable, and descended to the docks in a stubborn wave. Ponte listened. The beat of the motor choral responded rounder and less injured. We've started the class, Arbis said, his voice blown from walking so much. Today Vesper learns 3 things: timing, relay, and relief. On the deck of the Grey Dawn, Jana Rowe drew roots on a crooked hollow. Time. No one sings everything all the time. Relay. When my voice drops, yours rises. Relief. Low voices hold the bass, and high voices cut through the air. If we do this, the silence of the Dominion sector becomes a hollow cloth. Miko Dahl programmed the corner keys scattered throughout the Cape and neighborhoods, each one with a role. Staff on the pillars, setback on the walkways, syncopation on the roofs. Corsairs distributed small resonators as if delivering bread. Tie it to the handrail, don't step on it, breathe together. The radio sizzled. Commodore Valak Turn did not delay the threat. Vesper, I announce a discipline operation. The engine will be put into maintenance mode. Suspended jumps, paused beat, collaborate, and survive. Translation? Ral, captain of the Aurora, raised his eyebrow. He'll try to turn off the engine, Miko said. No beat, no tide, no singing. Jana clutched her tuning fork to her chest. Then the city beats for him. When the first maintenance rams arrived, pale cylinders that stuck to the skin of the engine and asked for rest in technical language, Vesper was already singing in waves. Neighborhoods above released 3 long and 1 short. Those below responded with 2 short and 2 long. Ponte, stuck in the habit of obeying what she listened to most, hesitated. And where he hesitated, the beat did not go out. "Take turns," Arby's shouted, cupping his hand in his mouth. "West walkway falls, roofs rise." A local silence fell over the school square. 4 seconds of nothing. The rooftop crowd didn't wait. They entered with syncopation, 2-3-2. Nothingness became almost sound. Enough for the keys to return the rest. The square breathed. "Relief," Jana pointed out. "Whoever is closest to the auxiliary metronome holds a catchphrase. Those who are far away only score. No shouting." The temptation to shout was great. The Dominion brought pruning boats, thin ships with blade antennae designed to cut frequencies from the coral like hair clippers. They passed through the eastern ring, trimming the engine, leaving clearings of silence where there was sound before. Each clearing hurt. "I heal," Arby's whispered. He leaned his forehead against a column, felt the relief that was missing, and taught a countersong of noise. Not melody, blow. Women opened the windows, men blew through bottles, and the workshops turned on tools without a load just to make air vibrate. The ugly sound filled the holes like putty on a wall. The keys recognized that as people and amplified it. The clearings have decreased. "Valik is climbing," Miko warned, pale. "Preparing deep maintenance lock. It is a packet that connects directly to the core. If it enters, the motor sleeps." "Where does he come in?" "Jana. In the heart. Arbis. Through 3 technical doors. 2 I have already mapped. The 3rd changes all the time. Cat's door." Raal tapped his knuckles on the map. "We split it. I hold the east door with the Aurora. Miko and Jana enter through the high door with the Pilgrim. Arbis, you sing to us the cat's door. By ear." The monk nodded. The Pilgrim slipped back into the bridge, without radar, only sound. The beat was irregular, like a tired heart holding the race. Vespa's chorus bore some of the weight. The Dominion lock pushed the rest. "High door," Miko pointed to 2 columns ahead, a technical ring opening and closing like irises. "It'll close in 6, 5. 4 is beautiful," Jana said, and passed by with a hand's breadth. On the other side, the maintenance corridor looked like a whale's throat. White walls, lines of light, and signs with forgotten numbers. On panels, instructions for humans that no longer exist. "Spin with the beat," read one drawing. Jana laughed shortly. "Thank you, ancestor." "Valik entering from the east," Miko heard over the noise, not over the radio. "Raal is messing up the hall." Jana scored 2-2-3 on the pitch, asking the runner not to hide the cat door. There was a timid note to the right, a trickle of colder air, and a trembling of the membrane. The door flashed there for a second and disappeared. "Again," she whispered, and repeated the cadence. The door swam a meter, stood near a cable holder, blinked, and ran. "Miko, give her lively silence." Jana cut it all off. It closed lights, sensors and monitors. Only pulse. Just breathing. The hull ceased to be metal and became skin. Ponte listened. The cat door opened like an eyelid. The Pilgrim passed by it with the care of someone who enters someone else's room. In the central hall, the maintenance lock awaited. A milky white prism, nerve-thin wires, and 3 claws ready to bite into the engine's core. It was beautiful and wrong. "If you bite, erase everything, Miko." "That's it." Jana put the Pilgrim on Cat's feet and descended with the tuning fork and 2 keys. The floor vibrated in a short, unbalanced beat. She stroked the membrane with the back of her hand, almost a request. "We can't pluck it," he said to the choir. "Then let's distract it." She fixed 1 key on the top, another on the base, and blew 1-3-1. The keys taught the hall a false beat, a rehearsal pulse, and the core moved attention to that beat as a pupil following a finger. The claws missed the timing and bit the air. 2 seconds, Miko warned. Valak will recalibrate. I need a relay, Jana called Aurora. When my breath falls, raise your voices. On deck, Ral became a conductor. Roofs, high, walkways, setback, dokas, staff, 3, 2, go. The city pulsated. The hall was filled with a choir from outside, arriving by paths that Valak could not see. The fake beat became thicker and more convincing. The claws bit the void again. The latch became irritated like an animal without food. He'll force it, Miko said. He'll push a straight note seeking the core. Then we give relief, Arby said in the channel, calm. An ascent, a descent, a variation that the algorithm cannot accept. Jana exchanged the 131 for 242, then for 331, always a little out of step. The lock tried to follow, lost, tried again, and lost again. The nucleus laughed in silence. 30 seconds, Miko, or he'll cut it by force. Jana looked at the prism. Beautiful and wrong. No shots, she reminded herself, without hurting the coral. She raised her tuning fork and blew nothing. Air, living silence. The keys were copied. The city understood and did the same. Pause. For a full beat, Vesper stopped. He did not give up. It stopped. Ponte recognized the intention as part of the song. The nucleus blinked, curious, and took a step back. The claws closed in the void for the 3rd time and locked for self-protection. It failed. Miko laughed incredulously. The latch locked. At the same time, pruning boats opened cracks in the eastern ring. Valak wasted no time. If I couldn't erase it, it would break. The radio brought his voice clean. Beautiful. You sing. I tear the stage off. Time for the final relief, Arby's. City, high, bridge, down. Vesper raised the tone, sharp from the windows, whistles from the workshops. The motor descended to the deepest staff since the beginning of the war. 2 seas, one on top of the other. The pruning boats missed the blade. They cut where there was no sound, and they let it pass where there was sea. Tactical retreat from the domain, Miko. They felt it. Jana leaned her forehead against the membrane. Tired, but clear. The countersong. Got it, Arby's confirmed. Today Ponte chose people. Ral held up his mug. And we chose to stand. Outside, Vesper's sky was a less hostile metal. The city, without knowing the name of things, knew the essential. Relay held its breath. Time organized fear, and relief confused the machine. Motor coral beat in everyone's chest like a shared heart. Jana put away the tuning fork. Tomorrow, he will come back with a storm. Miko nodded, and we with the chorus. Arby smiled, exhausted. The storm learns to respect those who know how to breathe. Ponte returned a short note. Promise renewed. And in the distance, like thunder that is yet to come, the Dominion gathered clouds. The Dominion returned before light set. They came with clouds, grids of orbital antennas, pruning boats in flocks, and frigates with artificial corals lit in a fever red. Vesper's sky became square. The silence of the sector descended like a canvas, and in the heart of motor coral, the beat staggered. Resonance storm, Arby said, pale. They'll push the core until it asks for a break. If the engine sleeps, Vesper becomes a hanging stone. On the deck of the Grey Dawn, Jana clutched her tuning fork to her chest. Miko spread maps like trick cards. Ral filled the kettle as if sharpening a sword. What's ours? Miko asked, without metaphor. Open the storm for us, said Jana. Before them. Raise the tide to the limit, but with chorus. Ponte follows those who really sing. If it's just their blade, it breaks. And who holds the rudder inside? Ral. Jana. Eve in the coral heart. I plug my biosignal into the nucleus and set the compass. The choir holds the rest. Arby's approved with a short gesture. I guide by sound. Ral, you fool the pruning boats. Miko leads the pilgrim to the thinnest membrane. And in the end, Jana, pause where they expect a note. The stone stumbles when the ground disappears. The radio opened on its own. Valak turn, clear voice. Vesper, last offer. I put the engine in orderly maintenance. You live small, or they die singing. Jana replied without asking for a channel. We are going to live big. Put on a cape, Commodore. It will rain. The pilgrim girl dived. Outside, Vesper's chorus burst into neighborhoods, walkways, and rooftops. Time, relay, relief. Inside, motor coral panted. Membranes trembled like candles in the wind. Blue seeds stuck and failed where the sound came many ways, but the domain had a long way too. The storm formed whirlwinds in the corridors. Thin membrane 20 meters away, Miko. Saturated air. You will taste salt and shock. It's strong music, Jana said, smiling with fear. She locked the magnetic boots, attached the cable, and left. The world has turned into living noise. The coral heart was a translucent dome, with veins of light and pulsars circling like shoals. In the center, a column vibrated, the knot of the beam that distributed the beat to the sector. There were recent scars, and there was something new. Thin needles vibrating in unison. The Dominion's artificial choir playing from outside. They've already tuned in here, Arby's whispered into the canal. I didn't bring enough prayers. I brought people, Jana replied. She leaned the tuning fork against the knot of the beam. Metal gave him back history. Boats, pots, and steps. He touched his finger on the biosignal sensor. Ponte captured pulse, pressure, and fear. He accepted. Time signature 753, said Jana. Long to breathe, short to bite, odd to stumble over machine. Miko, outside, saved the ship from a vortex and laughed breathlessly. 7 is a lucky number for those who don't count to 8. Then count on me, Jana. She blew the 7. The nucleus turned its invisible head and followed. The Dominion pushed 5 straight military church notes. Ponte looked at the 2 and hesitated. Who to obey? The city responded with 3 short, stubborn ones in the windows and on the tracks. The nucleus smiled, if hearts smile, and stayed with us. Preparing wave 2, Miko. Pruning boats, concentrating on the eastern ring. Ral. Giving tea, Ral said, and the Aurora opened a smoke of data, streaked short lasers, feigned weakness, and called game into the wrong corner. Corsairs bit tails and spat sparks. The youth of the neighborhood. Valak did not rush. The command boat, cold blades, opened its antennae like a cruel flower. The artificial coral tuned together. The storm reached its peak. Everything trembled, everything pulled. The floor looked like an escalator in reverse. Jana, Arbis, pause at the top, now. She did what no one in the war did. She stopped. An entire beat without sound. Her biosignal dropped to almost nothing. The tuning fork gave air. No notice. Ponte understood its intention again. The core felt the weight. The tide sank a hand. The pruning boats, which came with cuts ready, made mistakes like fencers crossing the void. Its blades sang in nothingness. Nice, but I bring anchors, Valak said. 3-phase sticks emerged from the frigates, driving themselves into the field like stakes. The storm stuck at fixed points. The motor screamed. Vesper staggered. He wants to record the sea, Miko. If it locks, we'll break it. Arbis sang quietly, fast. Jana, human relief. It gives you an error. Swaps 7-5 to 3 for 4-3-4 with a sigh. I fill holes with good noise. Jana obeyed controlled chance. He blew 4 almost alike, which were not. 3 together, which separated, and 4 with a sigh between the last 2. The nucleus fell in love with that. It was life. The phase sticks lost firmness, trying to lock on a stone that turned into water. Crack in the center anchor, Miko shouted. I do. The Pilgrim dipped off lights and glued 2 drain loads to the invisible feet of the stake. They didn't explode. They ate the cost of the straight bill. The anchor lost rigidity and became a rope. The storm, instead of arresting, danced. Valak changed his tune. He didn't go up, and he didn't scream. It just came. The command boat entered the membrane like a knife entering fruit. Antennae swept through the heart, looking for the knot of the beam and the hand that dared to rule. "See you," he said. "Let go, Ro. I'll take it without your pulse." "Take my weariness," Jana whispered, and increased the pace. The biosignal went off, and the arm trembled. The core demanded more. The city responded. The song went up the stairs, down the elevators, and passed from mouth to mouth. Time, relay, relief. The antennae touched the air above her. Blue seeds fell like rain. Miko shouted something that the radio cut off. Rawl sang an expletive in C major. Arby slammed his forehead on the railing and prayed to no saint. Jana opened her eyes. He saw Valik's boat from behind the veil, saw the thin blade. He saw the place where there was a lack of music, in the middle. Everyone sang outside strongly. It was missing close. Vespa. She spoke softly and put the tuning fork in her mouth. It didn't blow metal. He blew his voice. A short children's song, one of those that mark stairs, that measure breath, that cradled Jana herself in a dock cubicle. Pam, 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 Pam. Pause. The nucleus stopped looking at the war and looked at the cradle. He spun the beat home. The artificial choir has lost its meaning, tuned for the public, not for lap. The antennas slid. The blue seeds, without continuous silence, turned into flies in a storm. "Jana!" Miko cried and laughed. "The city is singing along. Balconies, corridors, rooftops. Pam, 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 Pam. Pause. Pots in turn, workshops blowing bottles. The biggest bell rang from below, like an old heart that decides to continue. Corazon Corral took the theme and returned it multiplied. Valik's antennae vibrated until the color faded. His boat lost angle and retreated a hand, then two. It was enough for Rawl to stick the aurora in the crack and spit dirty noise all over the blades. It wasn't a shot. It was ugly music at the right time. The command boat trembled like an animal that bites iron. "Withdraw," Valik said at last, without anger. The sky opened a finger. Frigates have turned off anchors, and pruning boats have disappeared into domestic crevices. The storm passed as if it had remembered another name. The heartbeat dropped to normal, the new normal that breathed with people. Jana took the tuning fork out of her mouth, slowly. The whole arm hurt. The beam knot kept beating without her. Ponte kept his pulse but did not take it. Accepted. Choose. "Status?" she asked hoarsely. "City on its feet, Miko. Singed rings, warm handle, but standing. Whole choir, Arby's. It's more in tune than yesterday." Rawl appeared on the display, smeared with pretty soot. "Tea?" Jana laughed, and the laughter hurt. After the epilogue. She picked up the line and returned to the pilgrim. On the membrane, he leaned his forehead. The choir returned a short note. One word without a tongue. "Thank you." Outside, Vesper breathed like someone who finishes a marathon and sees the horizon. No one talked about victory. They spoke in a breath, in the future, in rehearsal. And far away, small and stubborn as a promise, an old star flickered. Maybe it was just noise. Maybe it was Ponte saying that when the world decides to sing, the universe listens. The day after the storm, Vesper woke up smelling of wet metal and warm bread. What did not burn was crumpled. What he did not need, he sang. The anchor hanging from the orbital cable swayed less, a harbor swing, not a shipwreck. Children scratched chalk on the catwalks, marking "Pam, Pam, 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 Pam." Pause, as if it were a new game. Maybe it was. The city's engineers lined up to lean their foreheads against the columns and apologize in screw language. Monks of the Order of Echo walked the beams with the steps of those who visit the sick, placing corner keys where the sound failed. Corsairs of the Free Fleets hung colored ribbons on their antennae, superstitions of those who know that superstition is just a way of saying "thank you" with their hands full. On the deck of the Grey Dawn, Rawl poured tea into 4 mugs, poured some on purpose for good luck, and held out the first to Jana Rowe. She accepted it with both hands, as if holding something fragile. He had storm circles under his eyes and a wry smile. "I'm not going to say we won," Rawl began, looking at the pale planet. "But I say, we stay." "The domain stayed too," Miko Dahl reminded her. fiddling with the radio like someone who plays with a sleeping dog. They just gave me room to breathe. Breathing is political, Arbis replied, wearing worn sandals. When a world discovers that it can breathe in its own rhythm, it learns to say no without shouting. Jana turned the tuning fork in her palm, feeling the warm metal. There were still pulses inside, memories of the night, the unlikely 753, the pause that bit blades, and the child's song that saved a giant heart. The choral heart had returned a short note when she left the membrane. It was not nostalgia. It was recognition. On the radio, messages arrived as unstamped letters. From Caronte, they asked for the recipe of contracanto. From Nerit, they promised blue ribbons on all the docks. In Vesper, the improvised municipal council stamped a strange and beautiful decree. The bridge gained a seat in the assembly, an empty chair in front of the microphone, where one only speaks by tapping one's foot on the floor. They laughed at everything. Then they took it seriously. It could go wrong, Miko said quietly. You always can. Anything that is an agreement can, Arbis agreed. That's why we rehearse every day. A group of children came up with pots and shards of bottles, debutante orchestra. They asked to see the captain who sings. Jana blushed because she was nobody's captain, and when singing at most, she sang almost sound. Even so, he waved. A girl approached, eyes beady of a new planet, and held up the chalk. Teach the sign? She asked. Jana knelt down. He drew on the floor the simple beat. Pam, 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 and between the penultimate and the last, a little piece of nothing. This is where the machine stumbles, he explained. The girl smiled with all her teeth and ran to teach the others. The laughter spread faster than any sector silence. Valik Turn did not send a message that day. He didn't need to. The Cerulean domain would tweak antennae, rewrite algorithms, and hire priest engineers to explain why life should not be gained from a machine. They would come again, with another name for the same threat: controlled peace, preventive maintenance, or tidal hygiene. Come. That was their job. Vesper's job, on the other hand, was not to resist, a word that rusts. It was breathing together. The corner keys began to ring market and class schedules. The largest bell marked shift changes, and the workshops tuned tools before turning on. Not out of mystique, but out of practice. When the choir organizes daily life, it becomes easier to sing when the war tries to change the tone. At nightfall, Jana went down alone into the countryside, not to fight, to be thankful. The pilgrim floated down a corridor of tidy membranes, fresh scars with soft patches. She came out of the hatch and leaned her tuning fork against the living wall, without a breath, just skin on skin. I know you chose, he said, almost soundless. And I know you can choose again. Ponte responded with a light catchphrase, such as purring. He did not promise victory. A light he promised to listen. It was enough. On his return, he found Arbis on the railing, offering a bag of seeds. Pocket coral, he said, with a tired laugh. It grows in salt water, and history is told. Put it on Peregrina. When loneliness comes, he sings softly. And when the fear comes, Jana asked. Fear always comes. The difference is that now it arrives with a score. Ral showed up with 2 more mugs. I made a new toast, he announced. To the stubbornness tuned. They hit the mugs. The sound was fine and cheerful. On the horizon, a small fleet of barges began to depart, escorted by privateers. They would take the contracanto to neighboring ports, not as a weapon, but as a rule of coexistence. Time, relay, relief arrived printed on greasy paper, next to a bread recipe. That was how the war that never ends was won, in custom. Miko whistled at the child theme without realizing it. Jana followed, 2 shades down. Arbis put his foot down to the beat. The orbital cable vibrated slightly, satisfied with the company. And Vesper, tired, stood. When the stars lit up, no one asked if the Dominion would return. They wondered who would teach the Psi to the next school, who would change the membrane that still sizzled in the cold dock, and who would take the keys to Karen. Small, infinite, necessary work. Before going to sleep, Jana left the tuning fork on the Pilgrim's panel. The metal returned a short note that looked more like a word, not end. It continues. And that was enough.